All right, what's going on, y'all? Welcome to the Good Math Podcast. I am Jeff Kung.
Jason Chu.
Yeah, we have a lot to get to today. We haven't seen each other for a few weeks, so
It's been a little while,
there's
man.
been some news that we need to talk about.
Yeah.
But first on the docket, I wanted to talk about Coachella. Did you go?
I did not go. I stayed at home, and
Yeah.
that was the last place I wanted to be. But shout outs to what looked like an incredible lineup.
Yeah,
right?
correct. Yeah, I'm too old for that shit too.
That's what I'm
But
saying.
I saw online that K-pop basically took over Coachella this year.
Not just this year. I feel like the last few years, Asians kind of run Coachella right now.
Yeah, it's
Right?
absolutely wild because Jenny,
Mhm.
Lisa, both were on, and then there was a bunch
Yeah.
of new like pop idol groups on
That's right.
as well, on the Sahara stage, on Mojave stage.
Which is interesting, right? Because the way Coachella introduced like K-pop, let's
Yeah.
be real, it's not just Asians. It's like
Sure.
Korean Hallyu Wave idols.
Yeah.
The way they introduced it was with like Blackpink and BTS, these huge, already established groups.
Yeah.
But now, yeah, they're starting to like go into the ranks of K-pop that's like a little more up and coming
Yeah.
rather than being super established only.
88 Rising used to have a stage there.
That's right. It started with 88. It started with 88
So they
Rising.
had one where they would introduce a lot of Chinese acts.
Mhm.
And Coachella has become, I know it gets a lot of hate for being like, the Instagram, kind of the influencer, gotta go, money grab.
Fucking the Ferris wheel and all that.
Yeah. So I get it. I get the hate. And, I didn't go this year, largely not because of that, but because I've already seen it too many times.
Mhm.
But I still feel like for the younger generation, because I feel like I sound like an old fuck right now. Like, oh my God.
We are old fucks. Dude.
That's what I mean. So,
Yeah.
but I feel like younger generation, they still find it as a place to discover new acts,
Mhm.
and Asian acts being at the forefront of that,
That's right.
is quite interesting. And there's a lot of news around just Asian pop right now that I saw that's kind of interesting. So there was a company in Japan who now gives 4 days of paid absence if your favorite idol either retires or dies. You see this crazy fandom that has started in Asia that's now slowly getting to the West.
That makes me think of, dude, just 10 years ago, right? So everything that's been going on with New Jeans, right? Adore and Hype and all of this, you have American media outlets covering like deep cut corporate drama that's happening in Korea. I feel like 8 years ago, you told me that you'd have like Vulture and, the New Yorker like covering K-pop drama.
Yeah.
I would not have believed that.
Well, what's the crazy thing about it is it's literally fob drama. It's like it's not Asian American.
No.
It's homegrown Korean music, TV, film spoken in Korean.
Yeah.
Right? Like these K-pop songs are sung in largely Korean, not in English. And you got little white kids running around singing all these Korean hits.
White kids, black kids, Latinos. I'm about to fly out to Dallas. Where I host a night market every year.
Yeah.
And the kids who come, they always have like a K-pop dance block. They do the dance covers.
Yeah.
It's almost all non-Asian kids. It's all these, like Latina girls and black kids who love K-pop. Yeah. And they're dancing and they're singing along. They're lip syncing to Korean rap and choruses. It's fascinating.
Bro, it's wild because, so if anyone doesn't know, I'm a singer in China, and then I started out as like an idol, I think 20 years ago. And a couple years ago, I was in Aspen of all places, this place called Cloud 9. It was a kind of a bar, après-ski type of place.
Yeah.
And it's you kind of start dancing, they're playing EDM and stuff, and everyone's shooting champagne all over each other, right? One of these type of things. And I saw a group of students, like white students, and they were kind of like a bunch of girls. They were looking my way, and they were like junior high school.
They thought you were a K-pop idol.
They didn't know. They said, "Hey, are you Jeff?"
they knew
who
you.
I was. And I was like, I'm a Chinese pop singer, right?
Yeah.
And I kind of looked around and was like, is someone pranking me right now? I was like, what the hell?
Yeah.
And then I was like, how do you know who I am? Because first of all, I was really deep into rap at that point.
That's right. Yeah.
I wasn't really doing the idol thing anymore. And they said, "Oh no, we have a Chinese international student, and we heard your music."
Dude,
and
that's crazy.
No, like we can't believe this is you. And I was like, I can't believe you know who I am.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's what I was thinking. I was like, this is, and my mom and my sister and everyone was like, this is crazy. And it was amazing because they first got into K-pop, and then one of their friends who were from, like I said, abroad, introduced them to some of my music. And it was just like, I couldn't believe that because all my rap is in Chinese. There's there's a little English, but there's really not really much in there. So it was really shocking to me. And then I'm like, okay, this was like 4 years ago. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, now things have really changed. And going along with the lines of, I was trained in Korea. I was in the machine. Yeah. And I don't think people understand how difficult the K-pop idol system is. I mean, we're talking people get started at a very young age. Not me, but people get started at the age of like 9, 10 years old. Yeah. And in America, a lot of kids who are into hip hop or dance music, they go to a place like, I go to Millennium in LA, like a dance studio.
That's right. NBC, yeah.
They go to some camp. They go, after school, etc. In Korea, it's completely different.
You do not live a normal life.
Correct.
At all.
You go into the system and you literally are part of their little army. It's like almost, I don't want to say militarized, but it's that strict.
It's almost like a cult.
It is.
Yeah.
And I went into this, so I was signed to 2 companies. Not almost signed. One was a Japanese company called Avex. Avex, so it's like a blue logo. And I talked to SM for a while. And I went to both countries and I experienced what their training goes through. And when I tell you it's like a university, I don't think I'm doing it justice. So they have these dance classes and they give each group like a week's time to kind of show up at a test. Yeah. And they have a group of judges who are basically executives, dance instructors, experts. And they're basically critiquing each dancer because what they do is they feed a system. So basically you have a BTS, right? Yeah. But below BTS, they have all of their backup dancers who are just potentially trying out to be the next pop idol group.
It's kind of like a Major League Baseball, right?
Yeah,
like you've got a major league team.
Correct.
And then you've got all of these feeder teams.
Right, the minor leagues.
That are just developing talent and pipelining it up. And the top 1 or 2 will move up. That kind of thing, right? Yeah, so the parents pay for the kids at first, right? When they're like 8 or 9 years old, they pay for them to go into that system. But eventually, the companies pretty much pay for your life if they recruit you or if they think that you're good enough to make it. Yeah. And they basically control your life 100%. They control your name, likeness, image, what you do in your free time, where you live, what you eat, what you can say. You can't have a girlfriend. You can't have a boyfriend. You can't go, for the beginning of your career, you can't go out. You really can't do anything. And they're completely controlled by the company. And the other thing that I've noticed about it is that idols and pop bands were not invented in Asia. They actually the first one was probably New Kids on the Block. And even before that was Jackson 5. These type of, and even before that you had Motown and a bunch of those groups. Yeah, and so we're not talking the Beatles, right? Because there's always been bands, there's always been boy bands. You're talking about like boy groups that were intentionally put together to say, hey, we're going to appeal to a market segment. Yeah. It wasn't just a bunch of guys who started a band. Right. You're talking about a manufactured pop group. Like a pop group, like NSYNC, a Backstreet Boys, etc. And it was, they basically were invented in the US. Yeah. But
not dissimilar to a lot of things that are invented in the West.
True.
It was then systematized in Asia and then
scaled up
yeah, and created like a whole training school system around it that was able to exceed that of the West.
Mm-hmm.
It's like basically ChatGPT creating AI, right? And then DeepSeek going, oh, okay, I can do that too, but I can do it better, and I can do it more in a more disciplined way.
Yeah.
And I thought that was like a really interesting fact about Korean pop music, that they didn't invent it, they just perfected it.
Now, what happens, Jeff, when someone goes through the idol training and doesn't make it, right? Like they, from the age of 8 or 9, they've been training, whatever, they debut or they don't even make it to a debut, right? Like they never make it all the way onto a team. What happens to those guys?
There are so many. There's so many. They just go get day jobs. Sometimes they become teachers. They open dance studios on their own. Sometimes they go outside of Korea. So they go to China, they go to Vietnam,
Southeast Asia,
right? They go to the Philippines and they go train their own pop idol groups, whatnot. So you see a lot of these, the diaspora of K-pop occur.
Would you, and you would say that it's still across Asia, like the Asian pop industry.
Yeah.
Korea is kind of like the source.
Yeah, absolutely. Korea is, well, I wouldn't say the source, but they set the standard. Right. So the Jackson Wangs of the world, they all came from the Korean system.
Yeah, Amber too, right?
Amber came from the Korean system. All of them come to the Korean system. And recently I've seen Americans go into the Korean system.
Yeah.
So there's people from around the world are now going into the K-pop machine right now and trying to create different idol groups around the world. And it's interesting because this was all by design.
Yeah.
People don't understand that Korea has a soft power initiative to spread Korean entertainment around the world. Which started in first started in 97 when after the financial crisis, Asian financial crisis, they realized they needed some new growth industries. Yeah. And entertainment would be one of them. And in 2009, they came up with like I forgot the name of it, but they have a commission basically, a government position that spreads Korean entertainment worldwide. So they subsidize K-dramas, K-pop, K-dance, all these type of things. They actually promote it, and that's largely a reason why you really see it right in front of our face everywhere.
And I know the same thing is true in Japan also, right?
Yeah.
Like if anybody doesn't know about this, just Google cool Japan. It's not just kind of a funny phrase. Like it's actually a government initiative. Yeah. So Pokemon and Sailor Moon and Dragon Ball Z and Naruto and J-pop, anime, all this stuff. Like there's corporations and companies behind it. Yeah. But it's also exporting Japanese culture and soft power. Yeah. Has been a government initiative. It's been funded, sponsored, subsidized by governments. And I don't know. This isn't even a tinfoil hat or a conspiracy kind of thing. This is actually just how, I guess I would say, like soft power works in the world. It doesn't just happen. Certain countries don't just happen to become popular because, people the world over decided, hey, let's start paying attention to Japan or South Korea. It happens because countries build a unified strategy to export their culture and to get people understanding. Because every country has some cool stuff going on. Yeah. Some countries just find ways to promote that in a way that increases their profile on the global landscape.
Well, it's an attention economy these days, right? Like, what are you getting eyeballs for, and what are we showing those eyeballs essentially? And soft power is actually, something that the U.S. used to have a stranglehold on.
That's starting to change, though.
I know. Like everyone used to watch U.S. movies, TV shows, listen to U.S. music, etc. And I don't think that was actually accounted for. It gets to our next topic about the trade wars and how, the services and the movie industry and the culture industry that's exported and the value of that is never really accounted for. And it's changing already, right? Like we were talking about earlier. Now people have a very good impression of China versus the U.S.
That's right. I saw this last week in the news, right? Like for, I think the first time in a long time, global polls show that opinions of China are more favorable than the U.S. It said something like, will this country contribute positively to the world's future?
Yeah.
And more people said yes about China than about the U.S.
Well, our trade war segment.
Our favorite topic.
Our favorite topic. It's ridiculous because, first of all, they've already capitulated many times over at this point, and it's just kind of egg on the face at this point. It just feels like, all right, picked a fight you couldn't really end.
Yeah.
And now you're seeing the repercussions of it. Did you see that first of all, Temu and Amazon prices, Shein prices have gone through the roof?
Yeah. I've been AliExpress. So I'm a big action figure collector.
Okay, right.
Everyone on the action figures Reddit
Yeah.
is freaking out because these figures that used to be $20, $25.
Yeah.
Now there's these like $40, $50 tariff charges.
Yeah.
And it's shutting down the hobby.
Well, you mentioned tariff charges, which is what I wanted to talk about. What's interesting is that these retailers are not just increasing their prices, but they're actually putting a list of
they're letting
added
you know
expense.
Exactly where this expense comes from. It's not our fault.
Well, because the theory of a lot of I was going to say Trump tards. I was going to say the theory of a lot of supporters of these tariffs.
Yeah.
Or of Trump himself is basically saying, this is going to be paid for by
China.
China's
going to pay for it.
Right. China's paying for it. Exporting countries are going to pay for it. But these retailers are basically saying, this is what you got it for. This is the tax, and this is the import duty applied to it. Shein's doing that. Temu's doing that.
Yep.
Now
AliExpress.
Amazon is doing it.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah. So that was news. Yeah, that was news made this week.
Wow.
So Amazon is doing that. And Trump's not so happy about that because...
Dude, you can't throw a stone and hide your hand.
Yeah.
If you started this trade war, own this trade war.
Yeah. You want transparency, right? That's essentially what he ran on. So why not? And, it's really funny because his press secretary was wearing this red dress that, while talking about the trade war, that was later discovered was made in China.
Just like the MAGA hats are made in China. They're
Yeah.
made in China, embroidered in China, exported
Exactly.
for 15 cents each.
So the hypocrisy is ridiculous. So they're actually taking advantage of, global trade for their own benefits.
And that's the thing. Like, I could respect it. I don't necessarily believe in it, but I could respect it if you're really sticking by your guns and you're saying, look, American made, let's buoy up American industries. We want more workers here. We want more people buying American, even if it costs more.
But that's the problem.
Great. But they're not willing to do that. They're not willing to back it up.
The messaging behind it, and this goes back to our just topic about soft power, it was moronic. There was no really good messaging about what we're going to do ensuingly after putting tariffs on, or who this would help, or what type of pain that you would have to endure short term for long term gain. There was none of that.
Jeff, it makes me think of our conversation about education.
Yeah.
Right? Where they, the current administration ran on this platform of, look, we're doing all this nonsense in schools, DEI and pronouns and new genders, like let's strip it all out.
Yeah.
And they ran so much on what they're going to take away instead of what they're going to add in.
Yeah.
They're not, funding new STEM curricula.
Right.
They're not funding, science and tech magnet schools so that American kids can understand programming and large language models.
Yeah.
They ran and they won political points on what they're going to take away.
Yeah.
And it feels like similarly, even with these tariffs and this trade war, the talking points that I'm hearing from this administration are all how much we're going to hurt, these countries that have been taking advantage of us.
Yeah.
And they told American industries, they told, the American working class, look, we're going to help you out. But that's not any of the conversation for these last 2 months has not been like, oh, look, we're going to invest in bringing production back. We're going to, subsidize. If you've got a small business that's manufacturing in the U.S., we're going to give you a tax break and we're going to, let you incorporate your LLC for free.
Yeah.
it's all been about who we're going to hurt
Yeah.
and not helping Americans.
And what's upsetting to me about all of this is that the fact that there wasn't a plan.
No plan whatsoever.
Tells me really this was like ego saber rattling. Because you're getting that. We're at this detente right now where both sides are just saying stuff to the news.
Yeah.
Right? They're not meeting. Right? China and the US, there have been no high level talks, despite what Trump said. And once Trump says, oh, yeah, we're going to make a deal, China says, no, we're not.
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking about? We're not doing that. We'll never back down. You know? And then you hear something like JD Vance says something about Chinese peasants. And then you hear something that Trump says, okay, yeah, they've been screwing us for years. And, you know, it's escalated to this messaging war between the two countries without really any result or goal they're trying to reach. There's no agreement trying to be reached. And it's gotten to the point where you're basically risking the livelihoods of both populations just to really stroke your own ego, you know, and you can't lose face and both sides don't want to lose face.
Definitely not.
Right? Yeah. This is a big thing because you lose face, you lose power amongst, you know, your constituents at home. Right? But like the whole idea of, and this is why things need to be done pragmatically and things need to be done, you know, in a measured approach. Yeah. And that I feel like this country didn't do. Trump didn't really do that. And now we're in this mess where someone has to quote unquote cave, or someone has to look like they capitulated at some point. And I just don't know. I don't know the end to it. And I feel like China's like, all right, fine, let's go. Let's see it. Like, let's see how long you guys can suffer.
China's ready to push this line. Yeah. Like, they're ready to hold the line. And yeah, it's not great for them. But as we've talked about before, it's worse for our populace.
Okay. And also, I'm not sure if you saw some of the, let's say, social media posts coming out of China as it pertains to the trade war. So there was a middle-class Chinese guy who created this viral post that I saw. And it was super interesting because he said that global trade, free trade, benefited both countries. Oh, right? Yeah. Like U.S. saw much cheaper goods. Their Fortune 500 companies grew exponentially. No. And China created an economic miracle. Yeah. Bringing 70-80% of its population out of poverty.
America got affordable goods. Right. And China had an injection of capital. Right. And created jobs.
But then he took that argument to the next step and said, okay, what did each country do with that wealth? Okay? He said, in China, I definitely benefited from this. Yeah. We took people out of poverty. We subsidized local businesses. We made everyone fed. We increased our education levels. And then what did you do in the U.S.? Your rich got richer while leaving the poor struggling.
He's not wrong.
Leaving your middle class hollowed out. Yep. And created a top-heavy capitalist society. And now you blame China for that? You should be having a revolution in your own country so you can do what China did with its newfound wealth. And I found that argument, it's almost indisputable.
I wouldn't argue with it. He's right. He's right. You look at America, we've talked about the decline of the middle class for the last 20 years. Yeah. He's absolutely not wrong.
It shows that, everyone wins, but it's really up to your own government or your own companies to decide what they want to do with that wealth. Well, he even said, we're communist. Yes, we redistributed that wealth.
Both sides won. Yeah. Who in each side benefited is very different.
Right, exactly. And I just found that clip just so interesting.
It's Americans should think about that a little more.
I know, because let's see, Walmart said in 3 weeks there's going to be empty shelves, or so let's see how that goes. I feel like that won't happen, but I've been proven wrong before, so
that's true.
All right, so we got to talk about the Pope.
Oh yeah, R.I.P. Pope Francis.
Yep.
He was a really good guy.
I quite liked
hear.
this pope. I thought he was
Yeah.
very progressive. He expanded. Well, that's not the right word, because the Catholic Church still did shrink, regardless of the having which pope in there. But that's just a sign of the times. I really feel like this pope was one for this day and age.
Yeah. Yeah. He was in touch with the people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like everything that he did with homosexuals, everything he did,
women, social issues.
Yeah. I felt he was great.
A really cool story is for his first birthday.
Yeah.
That he was Pope.
Yeah.
So he was originally a cardinal in Latin America, in South America. For the first birthday he had when he was in Rome, he went out and he actually ate dinner that night with 3 homeless guys.
Yeah.
That's how he passed his first birthday as the Pope. And I think that really symbolizes kind of what he was all about.
Okay, so the front runner right now for becoming the next Pope is actually this Filipino guy, Luis Antonio Tagle, a 67-year-old.
Dude, Asians are up, baby.
I know.
We're so back. We're so back.
That's wild, but I think a lot of our Western audience may be surprised at this, but I don't think people understand how many Catholics there are in Southeast Asia.
Dude, yeah, people, I don't know. I feel like people may have a little bit of an impression, but yeah, the Philippines, Vietnam, like there's huge Catholic populations in these regions. The Philippines is something like 80% Catholic. 80% of Filipinos in the Philippines are baptized Catholics.
Right. And they're devout.
Yeah,
right?
They're super down.
Yeah. Like when you go to the Philippines, you feel the Catholicism.
Yeah. The Pope often visits the Philippines because there's so many adherents in that region.
I know you studied theology.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Like, why is there so many Christians in Southeast Asia?
Yeah, so it's this really interesting thing, right? Where like obviously the Spanish colonized
Philippines,
a lot of the Philippines, and then you had the Dutch and the Portuguese, right? All of whom brought a lot of European and Catholic kind of culture to those regions. And what is really interesting is how a lot of people in the Christian sort of like theological or even sociological spaces talk about how honestly right now Christianity has shifted away from being a Western European thing to at this point, and really for about the last 20 years, it's Africa, it's Latin America, it's Southeast Asia, it's the Pacific Rim that's been carrying, whether that's Catholicism or Protestant Christianity. Those are the regions that have really adapted the theology and the stories and the religion to their regions.
Right. Well, what's wild is, we talked about this before the show, but I'm just amazed by just religion at large. Yeah. Because it's the most powerful institution that I feel like the world has ever seen.
And not just the most powerful, but the longest lasting.
That's my point.
The Roman Church is one corporation that has had complete continuity for almost 2,000 years.
Well, that you hit it on the head, right? A corporation.
Yeah.
And think about this. We'd already talked about longevity of it over 2,000 years. They've survived kings. They've survived revolutions. They've survived democracies.
Every world empire has gone up and down in that time.
Correct.
And the church, they're still headquartered in the Vatican.
Yep.
Still have the same governance and complete continuity.
Yep. Number 2, they've crossed every borderline. They are in every single country. Yeah. Regardless of who is in power. Okay, so they have no borders, right? Number 3, they don't pay taxes.
That's a crazy one.
Okay, so they don't pay any tax to any country,
just to themselves. In fact, everybody pays taxes to them.
Correct. Everyone donates to them, pays taxes to them. Right? They've survived kings, monarchs, whatever, wars, everything, and they have no borderlines. Find me an organization that is more powerful than this. And by the way, based on, don't hate me, stories about the sun.
Yeah.
Okay? Stories about the cosmos. Right? That's basically what all of these religious books speak about?
It's the same questions, right? Where do we come from?
Right.
What's that thing in the sky?
Right.
Where do we go when we're done?
Correct.
Yeah.
Because those are the two things science can't answer.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Then science can answer everything else in the world, but those are the two things that you have to have faith in.
Exactly.
Where did we come from? We may figure out where we came from, but what happens after we die?
We don't know.
But that's the only reason religion exists.
Yeah. I would say what happens after we die, and what gets us through this. It's what they say about art, right? It's what they say about art.
Yeah.
It's not just how do we live, but why do we live?
Yes.
That art and religion.
It's the only reason we have religion.
Yeah, dude. So I think it's super interesting that the two front runners right now are this Filipino cardinal, and this African cardinal,
right?
And it does really feel like the Catholic Church knows that the future looks different,
right,
than it's looked for the last 1,300 years. So Pope Francis, he came from Latin America.
Yeah.
Now his ancestors, his parents, I think, came from Italy.
Yeah.
But he was the first pope in 1,300 years not to be born in Europe.
Right.
And then, now that they're looking at his successor to also potentially not be someone who's European, not be somebody who was born in Rome.
Yeah.
It feels like the Catholic Church, even an institution, like you're saying, as big and as long-lasting as the Roman Catholic Church, understands the future looks different and comes from a different place than the last couple millennia.
You know who's going to be pissed off about this? Trump. You know why? He's going to be like, this is a DEI hire.
DEI Pope on the way. DEI Pope on the way. Let's go.
DEI Pope. All right, come on, man.
Woke Pope on the way.
So, other things that have been popping off online is this Blue Origin.
Oh yeah,
Blue Origin space mission. Okay, the I just heard from you is like kind of uncomfortable.
It's a little uncomfortable.
All right, so a bunch of women went up to space. I shouldn't say a bunch of women. That's terrible.
So an all-women astronaut crew.
Yes.
Right, an all-women crew on this Blue Origin spaceflight.
Yeah. And on it was actually some pretty prominent females in various fields.
Yeah.
Gayle King was on there, Katy Perry, but actually
Amanda Wynn.
Yes.
Yeah, and I got to say, I've got a friend who actually works with Amanda really closely, and I've only heard good things about Amanda.
Right. So it was an 11-minute space flight. I think they only went to the outer atmosphere.
That's right. It was still not into when you think of like
deep
orbital.
space,
Yeah, so it
space.
was suborbital, right?
Yeah.
But it was far enough that there was no gravity.
Right.
Yeah, or there's less gravity.
Now, there's been a lot of controversy surrounding this space mission.
Yeah.
Right. Olivia Munn came out. There's a lot of celebrities that came out and said this was kind of a joke. It kind of what did they say? The quote was something similar to it's set back feminism, 20, 30 years.
Yeah, man. It seems okay. So we're two guys, two men speaking about this. So I acknowledge that.
Yeah.
But it does just seem like this tone deaf girl bossery. That it's like, look, well, okay, for the first thing, there have been all-women spaceflight missions before.
Right.
It's not from America.
Right.
Not from the U.S. The Soviets already sent
I was
up
going to say,
an all-women crew.
Yeah.
And again, I have actually a lot of respect for Amanda, at least, because I've heard, we've got some mutuals. But it just seems really tone deaf. It just does seem like there's so much going on the ground right now.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of, and frankly, if they'd even gone up and they had some kind of message about something that's going on down here, at least it would feel like you're saying something.
Yeah.
But it just felt like a kind of simplistic celebration of, hey, look, we've accomplished things. We're able to do this. This is amazing. This is a dream come true.
Right.
When, just trade war.
Yeah.
People are starving. There's ongoing genocides and conflicts around the world.
Right.
And it did feel like a lot to view this as a celebration rather than as a distraction.
Right. So I understand the feminist argument of it's like, oh yeah, look at us, we can drive. It's like, oh yeah, look at us women, we can do this too. Like, it's dumb, right? Like I get it, it's dumb.
Mm.
And like Katy Perry's like promoting her world tour, and Gayle King's on. It doesn't really. It felt like a
Right.
publicity stunt, right? And they're dressed in like these tight blue, like sexy outfits.
I know.
Like they're like in like like it looks like a leotard type of thing.
Well,
you know?
yeah, I'm not sure about all that, but what I will say,
Yeah.
right, is that it's like it felt like a very random assortment
Yeah.
of people as well,
Right.
right? Because like if there had even been like a public selection process,
Yeah.
right? Like, hey, we're gonna choose 11 women to sort of represent American society and what's going on, and like
Yeah.
they've been transparent, but it did just come off as it felt like a reality show casting.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, here's a bunch of names. There's somebody who's done some real social work, and here's a pop star, and here's somebody you've seen on media before, and it just felt like this random group of people
Yeah.
that there was no theme and there was no like consistency
Yeah.
as to who was chosen.
Well, I feel bad talking smack about it because Amanda Nguyen is like
Amanda's amazing.
She's a sexual abuse activist, and she has a lot of accolades in her own right. And if I were given the opportunity to go to space for 11 minutes, I think I would take it.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't think of like the social repercussions of me going to space. So I feel like a lot of these women didn't know the backlash they would face for it.
Yeah.
But you're right. It does look like they just took an 11-minute ride in like Bezos's space Cadillac.
Right. Yeah. And I think that, frankly, if this happened 3 or 4 years ago, it would have been different. But there's so much going on on the ground right now. And to
dress like Charlie's Angels in blue.
Yeah, and to go celebrate.
Yeah.
You know what? I it kind of feels like the problem is there's a lot of people down here. Like even there's this literal metaphor of you're up there and we're down here.
Yeah.
And people down here right now are not in a celebrating mood.
Yeah.
So I think to have this very public like celebration and hey, we made it, when most people are not feeling like that.
Yeah.
Just you know what it felt like? You remember in the beginning of the pandemic when there were celebrities singing, like Beatles songs.
Yeah.
And saying, "Hey, we're gonna, like we'll get through this together, guys." And it's like, dude,
it seemed very tone deaf.
Don't know, whatever together, whoever we are.
Yeah.
I don't know if you and I are part of the same we.
Yeah, exactly. Because you're like quarantined in your $10 million mansion.
Exactly. And we're lining up for toilet paper.
Yeah, exactly.
So, shout outs to Amanda Nguyen. Support your movement, absolutely. But this was not the best look.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so I saw another post on Neckshark, actually. Shout outs.
Hey, shouts to Neckshark.
They in Beijing, they did a race with humanoid robots versus real humans.
Obviously,
the obvious humans still won. They can't run that fast yet. But I also saw another kind of interesting post about drones in Shanghai, and they were basically doing. Have you seen this drone art?
Yeah, dude. And China's killing it with that.
Yeah. Have you seen it?
Yeah.
Dude, they're making like 3D moving images with like tiny drones with like different LEDs and colors and stuff. They can make a face.
Yeah.
They can create mountains. And have you seen this craziness?
Yeah, I've seen it. I love like Walt Disney World.
Yeah.
The stuff they're doing out there makes Walt Disney World look like Busch Gardens.
Dude, it's scary, man.
Yeah.
Bro, like we're living in Minority Report, it feels like.
Yeah.
Like we're almost there.
I mean, it's so interesting. I mean, this is how sci-fi always works, right?
Yeah.
Somebody imagines the future.
Yeah.
And then engineers like 30, 40 years later catch up with it.
Yeah.
Like, there was a time when smartphones, when the internet was just this like crazy dream.
Yeah.
And then you look back 25 years ago when we were kids, right? What were they talking about? They were talking about AI. They're talking about drone technology, robots.
Yeah.
It's just right around the corner.
Okay. Imagine AI, that probably already happens, right? AI controlling these drones.
Definitely.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's, you have to talk about the future of warfare becoming a drone war, because I'll give you a good example, right? So, Israel has the Iron Dome.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
that's
yeah.
kind of being very well known as the gold standard of how to defend against
Missile
rockets,
interception, right?
missiles, ballistic missiles, all of that. And it's great, right? It's the gold standard.
Yeah.
How are you going to stop 1 million drones? You can't. That Iron Dome is then obsolete.
Yeah.
It's really going to be drone versus drone. Or, you can't build a net large enough to protect an entire city. What are you going to do? You're going to put a big umbrella over, Los Angeles?
Yeah.
No way. So this is kind of, and then not for nothing, it won't be humans controlling this.
No, it's going to be AI that can respond faster.
Yeah.
And think faster.
Correct.
Than a human controller.
Correct.
Yeah.
And, I've always said this where, I have this odd theory, this weird theory that aliens are already here and they exist as bugs.
You know what we need to do, man? Every podcast,
Yeah.
we need Jeff's tinfoil hat corner.
Yeah.
Every podcast, we need you to give one wild theory.
Yeah, okay.
So this week on Jeff's tinfoil hat.
Yeah, okay, I like that. So this week is insects are all aliens. Okay? What can survive a nuclear blast?
Cockroaches.
Okay? So who's to say that they didn't come on some meteor? Right?
Kill off the dinosaurs.
And they survived past the dinosaurs. What could you never ever kill on this world? Like, you can make any animal extinct.
Cockroaches will always be around.
Cockroaches, mosquitoes will never go extinct.
It's true.
They will last longer than you and I, the human race, will ever.
And then they'll hop on a piece of our exploding planet.
That's right.
And go to the next one.
The strongest organisms on Earth are insects. They can carry things.
That's true. Percentage of what they can carry versus
Correct.
body weight.
Right? They can fly. They can crawl.
Basically, everything we invented for superhero comics.
Right.
Bugs already do.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. And not only that, they're smart. They're intelligent. So for example, ants.
It's true.
They have that. Why are they called army ants? Why? Because they have military discipline. And then if they see an obstacle, they either eat it, go around it.
Jeff, but do
That's
bugs?
what drones are.
But do bugs make art? But do bugs make art though?
I bet you someone has. I bet you someone in Japan has done it. I guarantee you someone has. So my point is, going back to the drone debate, is that essentially that's what it is. It's power in numbers.
Yeah.
And understanding, in Japan back in the day, maybe not back in the day, recently, they studied how, was it fungus or, okay. So they studied how, I think it was fungus grows in order to create their subway system.
Oh, that makes sense.
To understand.
That makes sense, right? Optimal networks.
Correct.
Yeah.
The optimal network was created by living organisms.
Yeah.
And I feel like that will happen as it pertains to drone warfare.
Yeah. I don't disagree. I think that we're, in exactly the same way that when we were kids, we saw the world go from what it was in the late 1900s to internet. Networked computing dictated the last 30 years of society, of technology, of popular culture.
Yeah.
And now we're again on the precipice of a similar paradigm shift.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to look back in 15 years and remember the first couple years of AI.
Yeah.
And
robotics. This humanoid robot. Dude, I think in 5 to 10 years, we'll probably all own a robot. Something like, probably.
Dude, fucking Roombas and DJI drones, this already exists. I think you're right.
Your dishwasher's a robot.
Yeah,
literally. We're gonna start owning. I don't think we're gonna have
not like the Jetsons.
It's not gonna be the Jetsons where you have a robot maid at home. I think that's kind of crazy.
Yeah,
but you're gonna have automated tech kind of everywhere around the house.
Yeah. I think you're right.
And this gets to the next little quick news story. There was an Indian kid who created an AI app that can literally detect heart disease within 7 seconds.
Great for him.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you.
But it made me think, it's like, are we going to die? I don't think we may live to like 120, 130. There are theorists out there who say that,
talk about life extension,
longevity, and then in 20 years from now, there will be tech so high tech that you will be able to 3D print a lung, or stem cell research will rejuvenate all of the stem cells and all of your internal body organs, so they decrease in age by 10 years, 20 years. And I'll admit it, I'm on the longevity bandwagon. Yeah. I'm trying to get my 8 hours of sleep and wake up and get my vitamin D and take all the supplements that I need to take just so I can live longer. But there's a lot of repercussions to that, because if we all live longer, we can't work longer. Yeah. But you're going to need robots, and you're going to need a lot of other things to take up the slack of all these old 120-year-olds.
I mean, this is the thing for me, right? Like, I agree that I think the ceiling is going to keep getting raised. Yeah. Right? Like, hopefully things like heart disease, things like, cancer, there's going to be all these mortality factors that we're starting to understand better, and if not solve, at least like work against. Right. But to me, it's just as important, if not more important, to not only raise the ceiling, but raise the floor, because it doesn't do society as a whole any good if the wealthiest or the best cared for, the people who can afford to buy the best care, are all living longer and getting healthier and getting happier. Yeah. If the average citizen or the hardest hit citizen is staying at the same place or even getting worse. Yeah. So I hope that as we use technology to increase these human limits, at the same time, just as much work is going into technology that helps raise the sort of like bare minimum for everyone also.
That's a good point, because I'm not sure if these health insurance companies want people to live to 120, or do governments want people living longer? Or are they more incentivized for old people to die faster?
That's true. Right. Because all of a sudden, if you've got a lot more elderly in your population, that actually changes the burden on younger working generations that increase, Social Security, it's already gone in our generation.
I think so, right? Unless you keep printing money.
We're not getting that, bro.
But we're paying into it.
Exactly. And that's the thing, right? The more that a society has a demographic concentration that's older in retirement age, beyond working, to a certain degree, the more pressure just falls on the younger.
Well, and birth rates are going down across the world. So
you can wind up having this inversion where there's more elderly who are drawing from social resources, and there's fewer people paying into it.
So we need robots even more.
We need robots even more, and we need to figure out what we're doing with social services.
Yeah, because I think that's, like you said, we're not going to be able to pay into that.
No.
Anymore.
We're not going to be able to draw out, certainly.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. There was one last thing that I saw that I wanted to talk to you about. I saw a video online about two Asian guys going at it and calling each other chinks. And then I saw another post about some, I think it was African-American girl said, "Oh, look at me, chinky-eyed," or something. And it made me think of the word chink as,
is this weird name?
Is this, first of all, it's weird, but is this our N-word? Should we be embracing it and calling each other that? Or is that just like a black thing? Let them do that.
I like calling us Chinamen. Okay. I think that's the funniest way to put it. I think Chinaman is the funniest, but I don't know. Like, this is the thing, bro. Right. Like, you and I both know this. We're both culture guys,
sure,
right?
Yeah.
copying what someone else has done
Right.
and just trying to do the same thing is
Right.
always cringe.
Yeah.
Like,
True.
I really think Asians shouldn't be trying to find our N-word.
Right.
We should just be doing our own thing.
I know.
You know what I'm saying? And I think that any time that I've seen somebody be like, oh man, like, let's be more like black people. Like, they can do this. She's like, dude, why are you taking your cues off of another community?
Yeah.
Let's just do what's natural to us. And I don't think it is natural to any Asian. Like, yo, my shit, what's that? Like, dude, that's just, to me, it's super cringe.
To me, I feel exactly the same. When I saw it, like, what's up, Chink? What's up, Chink? Like, it made me uncomfortable, but not in the same way.
Bro,
like,
'cause
I was
ain't
like,
nobody ever do
upset
that.
or triggered
Yeah.
by like, feeling, that's a racist term.
It's just cringe.
It's just dumb.
Yeah.
Right? It just feels dumb. Like, like, or shout outs to Rich Brian, but when he first came out as Rich Chiga,
Yeah.
or, when people use the word chink, or like you said, I think Chinaman is way funnier.
It's so much funnier, dude.
But I don't see other cultures embracing their own slurs like black people. I think that is a single thing.
Yeah.
Right? You don't hear people calling each other like wops or wetbacks, or you don't.
Not in the same way, and exactly, like, I will say that everybody, if you're trying to copy what someone else has, instead of embracing what you already have, you already have lost yourself. You already don't know yourself.
It's funny because I had a friend of mine, Wang Li Hong.
Yeah.
He, I think, was it a song called Chink, or he used the word? And I almost called him. I'm like, bro,
this ain't it. This ain't it.
Just don't go there, because this is this isn't our battle. And
this is not a.
We haven't struggled.
It's not the same.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
It's not the same.
We haven't struggled. But But I saw some like 5-year-old get like racially harassed recently.
Yeah,
and
that
if
was
they
some
do
bullshit.
call you that,
Yeah.
I was gonna say fuck them up.
Yeah.
But like, don't stand for it.
No, I have been on record before as saying we need to push back.
Yeah.
We've talked about this in our early podcast.
Too, yeah.
If somebody steps to you, you got to press them.
Right. So this word chink is not good for anyone to use in a derogatory way or in an affectionate way.
If you can find a cool way to use chink, if you can find a way to say chink and it doesn't sound cringe, send it to us, because we'd love to see it. But I can't imagine it happening.
Oh, bro, by the way, just,
Yeah.
Another time that I saw it been used where I did get upset was when Linsanity was happening.
Yeah, the chink in the armor.
The chink in the armor.
That was somebody trying to be too clever.
Yeah, they were trying to be a little cheeky there, and that pissed me off.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, don't use the word. Let's not use it with each other. Like, that's just cringe.
We don't use it for ourselves.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyone else definitely should use it.
Yes.
Either.
Don't use it. All right. Let's be ourselves. And on that note, we will say goodbye.
Yep.
And then, see us online. IG, Good Math Pod. YouTube, Good Math Pod. We're all over there. This is Jason Chu Music, right?
And this is Jeff Kung.
There you go. Peace, guys.